Welcome back to The Experience. I'm your host, Steve Fox, and tonight we're talking with the authors of Deliver Us from Evil, a book on Spencer's hidden secret based on the Prouty, Hammond deaths, mysterious deaths. There were 6 of them. If you're just joining us, a real quick wrap-up. Linda and David Boutillette are the family that had access to or found the murder weapon that mysteriously disappeared in the hall of their wall of their bathroom, or his father's bathroom, and Marilyn and Randy Burdett, who found clippings of the accountings of the story that that got this whole ball rolling. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with the story, a real quick recap. Henry Hammond, son of Aaron Hammond, was to wed Iris Prouty, the daughter of Maria and William. And prior to the wedding, just before the wedding, Henry was shot, supposedly killed himself with a single gunshot wound to the center of his forehead. And then, what was it, a day later, 36 hours? 36 hours at 6 o'clock?
Yes.
That's another interesting point. All the bodies were found at 6 o'clock. Maria Prouty's the mother of the bride. Her body was found in her home, strangled. Supposedly she had hung herself in an attic where there were no rafters. Mm-hmm. And yet both of these were suicides. And the gun disappeared, and then they found it. It's just interesting. It's all in the book. Fabulous book. Now, before we left, we were talking about religious background at the time when this was all going on. You, I guess, were raised Catholic. Am I correct? Now, normally, skeptics with paranormal, ghosts, past lives, what was going through your mind when all this was starting to come out?
I was very frightened, and my family, even at that point, told me to stay away from this. They said that when you start getting in touch with psychics and fooling around with Ouija boards, that you can draw demons to you, And my family was very old-fashioned, and they told me that to stay away from this. This was the occult. I was very frightened, but I was so intrigued with the story itself that I just had to keep going. What kept me going was I just could not believe that 6 people committed suicide in the month of January.
At 6
o'clock. And the witching hour, but I was raised not to believe in this, and even my daughters, they discouraged me. They said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "This is a fascinating story. Because I'm researching something does not mean that I'm getting into the occult." Right. But I was frightened. There were things that happened that were very frightening, and I could not. I never did believe in ghosts. I did not believe in witches or anything like that. If anyone would have told me that this had happened to them, I would not have believed it. But when it happens to you, when you are staring this in the face and strange things that you cannot explain start to happen, you start to question yourself.
I'm starting to think twice, and Mr. Skeptic over here, who's the picture was very, very well drawn in the book. I could just see you sitting there with every possible step of the way at the very beginning. I have to ask the contrast. Where are you at now? What's your? Are you still as skeptical? Are you still kind of? I mean, you're like me. You need to have. Well, I'll say a little bit like me. You seem to need to have the proof put right in front of you before you make a decision.
To be shown. I really
Whereas
do.
I need to have the proof that it doesn't happen. So I'm a little more on the opposite. Right. But are you a little more or a little less skeptical now that you've experienced this?
I'm a true believer today.
What was the turning point for you?
To be honest with you, the turning point started during the research of this book. The evening we sat down with Mr. Rabouen, and he came across telling us what he saw, how he felt. He took the revolver and actually put it to his forehead, and he started talking in riddles, rambling. And some of the things he said that Randy and I took time to research after turned out to be true. At the time, we had no idea what he was talking about. But one thing he said, where I really began to wonder, was the fact he didn't even know we were taking a revolver there. Marilyn had set up the appointment. I cursed her for it at the time because I didn't want anything to do with it. I was scared to death when we went there. He said we were looking for a gingerbread house, and you swear this come out of Hansel and Gretel. Unbelievable. But when he sat there in his parlor that evening and he put the revolver to his head and he says, I see an organ. And someone's playing the organ. I turned over to Randy and I went, another wasted evening. He said, it's a Hammond organ. You know? And I turned around and I looked and I said to myself, he's getting close. He's getting close. This is strange. And he says, no, it's not a Hammond organ. It's a man named Hammond. It's not even an organ. It's Henry Hammond. Well, I got dry mouth and wanted to leave. And at that point, he looked at me and he put his finger to me, and I won't say exactly what he said, but basically he said, you don't believe me, do you, David? And I said, no, I really don't, Mr. Rabot. And he says, you will. And then he turned around and says something to Marilyn and whatnot. But to be honest with you, my belief in Mr. Rabot came after the book. Came after the book. He had told me something that I thought, this is totally impossible. I won't get into it, but I said, this is impossible. And he named the date that it would happen to me.
Really?
And he pinpointed it right to the day.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm a believer.
Now, on your end, what was your similar background growing up?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I'm the hardest one to convince out of the four of us, actually.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I would have.
Oh, no. I'm the skeptic.
Marilyn was brought up Catholic, and I was brought up Protestant. And Marilyn's more open to
I'm
different
open.
things. Okay?
But you got to convince me.
But you got to convince her. And she was like the private investigator that says,
Right.
okay, listen, show it to me in black and white.
But
Okay?
when we went to Teddy, and he did come out with, no, it's not an organ, it's Henry Hammond. What he did say in the next line was, he was killed with this gun.
Yeah.
And one other person was too. And he said, shot,
And then
dead
he said
center.
it was found in your bathroom wall.
Yes.
Remember? Yeah.
So he kind of just rambled right through it. And what he did say to us in the beginning was, I'm going to ramble, take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah.
And we've soon found out what that meant.
So you're believers now. The